Today we're diving into a must-have wardrobe staple, a classic pair of high-waisted jeans. This free pattern features a timeless 5-pocket design, a front fly, and a flattering wide leg silhouette that's perfect for non-stretch denim. I'm sewing mine today in 100% cotton wash denim from mytextilefabric.com, and it was so fun to work with. If you're tackling heavier weight fabrics at home, here are a couple of my go-to tips. Bump up your stitch length to about 3 to 4 millimeters depending on the bulk, and keep a hump jumper handy to breeze through the start of those thick seams. Follow along as I walk you step by step through the process of creating your own perfectly tailored jeans, a satisfying project for any seasoned sewist. Finish the outer side edges of the coin pocket piece. Fold the top raw edge of the coin pocket piece to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch. Then we'll fold this top section to the right side by an additional 3/8 of an inch and give that a good press. Sew the side edges of your folds with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Trim the top corners of your seam allowance and turn that folded edge right side out. Edge stitch along the lower inner fold straight across. I've gone ahead and folded the outer finished edges of the coin pocket to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch. Place the coin pocket piece onto the corresponding pocket bearer piece, placing the tops of the pocket at the dots transferred from the pattern piece, and pin in place. Along both outer edges of the coin pocket, I'm going to edge stitch close to the outer fold. Then I'm going to sew once again, top stitching with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now that our coin pocket is attached to the right pocket bearer piece, we'll finish the curved edges for both pocket bearer pieces. Place the wrong sides of the pocket bearer pieces onto the right side of the pocket lining pieces, aligning the side and top edges and pin in place. We're going to edge stitch the pocket bearer pieces in place along the finished edges. Along the top and side edges, we'll baste those pieces in place. Place the curved edge of the lining right sides together with the curved edge of the front pant piece. Pin in place. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Clip into the seam allowance, careful not to clip through your stitching line. Flip the lining to the inside of the front pant. We're going to give this seam a good press, slightly favoring that lining fabric to the inside so you can't see it from the outside of the pant. Top stitch this curved edge twice, first at 1/8 of an inch, then once more at 1/4 of an inch. Fold the pocket lining in half right sides together. Sew the bottom edges of the pocket together with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and finish the raw edges. Pin the side and top edges of the pocket to the side and top edges of the pant and baste in place. Repeat to create both front pockets. Place both of your front pieces right sides together. Pin together from the notch transferred from the pattern piece to the bottom of the crotch curve. Sew from the notch to the bottom of the crotch curve with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, back stitching at both points to secure. At the notch where we started our stitching, we're going to snip into the seam allowance from the raw edge to the stitching line, careful not to clip through the stitching. Now that I've created a separation along the seam allowance, I'm going to start finishing the raw edges of this curve from the notch to the bottom of the crotch curve. Then we'll press our seam allowance toward the left front pant piece. Along the right front pant piece, I'm going to finish the raw edge from the top to the notch. Then I'll turn and press that finished raw edge to the wrong side, right along the inner edges of the finishing stitches. With the right side of the zipper facing you, place it behind the folded edge that we just pressed under. And you want your bottom zipper stop to be at the notch marked on the front pant piece. Pin in place so that the zipper teeth are about 1/16 of an inch away from the folded edge. Baste the zipper in place close to the folded edge from the top to the notch. I've applied interfacing to the wrong side of my fly shield piece. Now I'll fold it in half right sides together and pin the bottom edge. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Trim the inner corner, then turn this piece right side out and give it a good press. Finish the long raw edges together. On the inside of the pant, align the top raw edge of the fly shield with the top raw edge of the pant, placing it on top of the zipper. You want the finished edges of the fly shield to sit right on top of the basting stitches that we sewed to attach the zipper. And we're going to sew that in place from the top to the notch, sewing right on top of our original basting stitches. I've gone ahead and applied interfacing to the wrong side of my fly facing piece, as well as finishing the curved raw edge. Place the fly shield right sides together with the left side of the pant, aligning the top edges and the inner edges and pin in place. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance from the top to the notch, backstitching to secure. Turn your fly shield to the inside of the pant along the main seam and give that a good press. From the outside of the garment, we're going to top stitch on the left side of the pant from the top edge to the bottom of the crotch curve. And since we pressed that seam allowance to the left side of the pant earlier, we'll be catching that seam allowance as we go. Top stitch with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. From the front of the pant, place the left fly opening over the right side of the pant. The left finished edge will just overlap the right. Pin in place. Baste the left center edge over the right, edge stitching along the finished left edge, from the top to the bottom of the zipper opening. Turn your front pant piece to the wrong side and pin the fly shield out of the way. Fold back your left front pant piece underneath the right. Now we can sew the remaining side of the zipper tape to the fly facing underneath, sewing close to the zipper teeth from top to bottom. With the fly shield still pinned out of the way on the inside of the pant, we're going to top stitch along the finished edge of the fly facing from the right side of the pant. Top stitching along my transferred line from the top to the center seam, back stitching to secure. I've unpinned the fly facing, now I'll place it over the zipper, and we'll sew the bottom edge of the fly facing to the bottom edge of the fly shield. Careful not to stitch through the outside of the pant. Now we can turn the front pant to the right side and undo the basting stitches. I've gone ahead and finished the side and bottom edges of my back pocket piece. Now I'm going to fold and press the top raw edge of the back pocket to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch. Then I'll fold and press that fold to the right side by an additional 3/8 of an inch. Sew both sides with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Trim the top corners of the seam allowance and turn the top fold right side out. I've given that top fold a press, and I've also folded my seam allowances along the side and bottom edges to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to edge stitch along that bottom inner fold from one side to the other. Place the wrong side of the pocket onto the right side of the back pant piece, aligning the top edges with the dots transferred from the pattern piece, and pin in place. At this point, if you'd like, you can also add a garment label under one of the folded edges of your back pocket. And we're going to top stitch in place twice. Top stitching along the side and bottom edges of the back pocket, first with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, then once more with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Place the back yoke right sides together with the top of the corresponding back pant piece and pin in place, aligning your notches. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, finish the raw edges together, then press the seam allowance up toward the yoke. Top stitch the seam allowance of the yoke in place twice, first at 1/8 of an inch, then once more at a 1/4 of an inch as we've done previously. Repeat to sew the back pockets and back yokes for both back pant pieces. Place the back pant pieces right sides together and pin together the back curve. Sew the back curve with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, finish the raw edges together, then press the seam allowance toward the left pant piece. Place the front and back pant pieces right sides together and pin the outer seam and the inseams. Sew each outer seam from the top to the bottom with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and finish the raw edges together. Then also sew the inseam starting at the bottom of one pant leg, up and across the center seam, and back down the opposite pant leg to the bottom edge. Then finish the raw edges together. Press all of your seams toward the back of the pant. I've gone ahead and finished one long raw edge of the belt loop piece. Now I'll fold the opposite raw edge to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch. Then fold the finished edge on top of that material to cover the raw edge, making sure that your finishing stitches are not visible from the opposite side. Edge stitch in place along both long edges of the belt loop piece. Cut the belt loop piece into 3 equal pieces. And repeat for your remaining belt loop piece. I've applied interfacing to the wrong side of my waistband piece. And I've also applied a label at the center back. Then I'll fold the long raw edge of the interfaced side to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch all the way across. Now I'll place the raw uninterfaced side of the waistband right sides together with the top of the pant, so that the short edge of the waistband extends 3/8 of an inch beyond the finished edge of the pants. Pin in place and repeat on the opposite side. At this time, if you also have zipper tape extending beyond the raw edge of the pant, you can trim that off. Continue pinning your waistband along the top of the pant all the way around. Sew the waistband to the top of the pant all the way around with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then press your seam allowance up toward the waistband. Fold the short edges of your waistband in half right sides together, maintaining the pressed up seam allowances on both sides. Pin in place. Repeat on both sides of the waistband. Sew the short edges from the top to the bottom edge with a 3/8 inch seam allowance on both sides. Trim the upper corners of the seam allowance and turn the waistband right side out, then give it a good press. With that waistband pressed and folded to the inside, the inner fold of the waistband should just cover the main waistband stitching line. Then from the front of the garment, you can stitch in the ditch, making sure that you're catching that folded edge as you make your way around. For each of the belt loops, fold back the short edges to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch. Then you'll place the belt loops along the top of the pant as indicated in the pattern image. And you'll edge stitch along both of the folded edges. Repeat for all 6 belt loops. Then you can sew your buttonhole and your button as indicated on the pattern pieces. Now to hem the bottom of the pants, I've gone ahead and finished the raw edges all the way around. The hem allowance provided in the pattern is 1 1/4 inches, but you can try the pants on and determine how wide of a hem you'd like to create. I'm just going to turn the raw edge up to the wrong side by 5/8 of an inch, sew along my finishing stitches all the way around. Repeat to hem both pant legs. Now your jeans are complete. Thank you for watching this sew along. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming sewing tutorials, and I'll see you in the next video.